Okay, I just want to go over this Unit 2 assignment. And just getting my pen here. So, in Unit 2, the assignment, first question there is asking, a first-year master chef was hired in White House, Yukon, an annual salary. So every year he gets paid $52,000. What would her gross pay each paycheck? What would it be if she was paid weekly? Well, there are 52 weeks in the year, so the salary would be divided into 52 equal portions. So we have to divide this by 52, and we get our answer of $1,000. So that would be the pay each week. Now, bi-weekly means every 2 weeks. So if there's 52 weeks in a year and they only get paid every second week, that means we have to take the 52,000 and divide it by 26. So every 2 weeks they're going to get paid $2,000. So understand that bi-weekly means every 2 weeks. Semi-monthly, this means twice a month. That may seem the same as bi-weekly, but in fact there's slightly more than 4 weeks in a month. So it ends up being slightly different. Semi-monthly, twice a month. So how often during the year, how many paychecks per year would that be? Well, if you think about it, it means we have to take 12 months and multiply that by 2 times a month. So in fact there's 24 pay periods if they're paid semi-monthly, and this is how most people are paid if they're salaried or in a career. So there is a difference here between 26 and the bottom here being 24. So that division becomes 21.66 and 66 cents every twice every month they get paid. And of course if they get paid monthly, we just take 52,000 and divide it by 12 months. In this case the salary $4,333 and 33 cents each and every month. Okay, so you can pause the video if you like and just look at that if you missed something. So let's move on. Question number 2. Sylvia, she has a time card, and this will be for her job, keeping track of her hours. She would fill it in, or her employer would fill it in. What are her total regular and overtime hours? Answer in hours and in minutes, meaning hours and minutes. So first of all, we've got to figure out what her regular hours are in total using hours and minutes. Well, we have to total the hours up, and let's see, what would that come to? I'm trying to think. That's 14, that's 19, that's 26, that's 34. We've got 34 hours there in total, but the minutes are going to add up. So how many minutes do we have? We have 60, 70 plus 20, 90 minutes. So that's another hour and a half. So it'll now be, instead of 34 hours, it'll be, so let me just put down 1 hour here plus 30 minutes. So in total, her regular hours are going to be 35 hours and 30 minutes. Okay. Overtime hours, okay, so 1 plus 1 is 2, and minutes are adding up to 47, so 2 hours, 47 minutes. Number 3, calculate the total number of hours and minutes Moira worked. Oh, sorry, I think I've done that right. Total number of hours and minutes Moira worked the week of June 15. Here's week of June 15. Now they're giving it to you not in hours and minutes. They're giving it to you only in hours, but they've got decimals here. Point or tenths of the hour. Harder to calculate that into minutes. Let's just add this up. We've got 5, 0 and 7, so that's 14 plus 3 is 17. Put down 7. Carry the 1. It's 4, 8. And that's 14, 18, 23. So 23.75 hours. Now 0.75 of an hour, we've got to calculate that into minutes. It's 3/4 of an hour, right? 3/4 of an hour is really 45 minutes. Now, if this is just a decimal that doesn't make any sense in minutes, this one does because it's 3/4 of an hour. But if it didn't, we'd take the decimal, 0.75, and multiply it by the 60 minutes in per hour. So 3/4 or 0.75 of an hour, 0.75 of 60 equals 45. That's how we would get how many minutes if we were using a different decimal that wasn't so obvious. Okay, so we have 23 hours and 45 minutes. Okay. On to question 4. Dawn typically works 30 hours per week and earns $13.25 every hour. So we can easily calculate how much he earns per week. He is scheduled for a 3% pay increase next month. What will be Dawn's new hourly rate? So right now he's earning $13.25. He's going to get a pay increase of 3%. So this is going to go up 3%. What is 3% of this? We're going to have to find out 3% and add it to his current wage. So we take 13.25, multiply by 3%, 3 over 100, or 0.03, and we get, looking at my answers here, we get 0.40. In other words, it's going to increase by 40 cents. So we add 13.25 to that. It's going to increase by 40 cents. So now he's going to get $13.65. His original wage plus a 3% increase. Number 5. Jenna works part-time at a grocery store. She works 15 hours per week and is paid $559.20 every month. What is she paid per hour? They mention here there's exactly 4 weeks in the month, in this particular month. So what is that saying? Well, she works 15 hours every week and she's getting paid this for a month. So that's her pay for 4 weeks of work. We want to know how much she's paid per hour. Well, we can take her total pay and divide it by how many hours she's worked to get this pay. So for $559.2, she worked for 15 hours a week for 4 weeks. How many hours is that? Well, 15 times 4, that's going to be 60 hours. So this is her pay for 60 hours. If we want her pay per hour, we need to know how much she'll get per 1 hour, not 60. So we divide it by 60. and we get our answer. It equals 9.32. So she's getting paid 9.32 per hour. Question 6. Larry is paid $48 for an hour of overtime. If he is paid time and a half for this overtime, what is his regular wage? So they're telling us here that $48 an hour is his overtime wage for overtime. And this is actually time and a half. He's getting paid 1.5 times his regular wage. Okay. So $48 is 1.5 times his regular wage. How do we calculate that? Well, $48. And this is 1.5 times his regular wage. I guess you could think of it. He would have to normally work 1.5 hours at his regular wage to get $48, because he's getting paid time and a half. That's really what it means. Double time means you'd have to normally work 2 hours to get the same wage. Okay, so we could say that on his regular wage he'd earn 48 for 1.5 hours. Well, how much is he going to get for 1 hour? Well, let's say this is hours, by the way. This is dollars. We want to know how much he'd get for 1 hour. So divide this by itself. That will equal 1 hour. So divide this also by 1.5. So for 1 hour, if we calculate that, it's $32. Some of this is pretty intuitive. Perhaps you would realize that 48 just needs to be divided by 1.5 to get 32. Okay, $32 is the answer. Scrolling down to number 7. Erica earns $11 per hour and works a 40-hour work week. She's paid time and a half for every hour worked over 40 hours. Now Erica earned 605 last week. How many overtime hours did she work? Well, obviously she must have worked over 40 hours to get any overtime money. Well, let's see. I think we're going to have to look at how many dollars would she have earned working just the regular 40-hour week. Okay, so at $11 per hour, working for 40 hours, she will earn $440. She earned more than that, of course. Let's see how much she earned. 605 minus 440 will let us know what she earned for her overtime. So in doing this, we find out she earned $165 for her overtime. Okay. How do we convert this into how many overtime hours? Well, if we want to convert this to hours, really we need to multiply. The unit here is dollars, okay? So we really want to get rid of dollars and end up in hours. One way to look at it is that if we use a ratio of dollars to hours, we can get cancelling the dollars if we put dollars on the bottom of this ratio. Dollars on top cancel with dollars on bottom, and we'll be left with hours. Okay, well, for 1 hour, what does she earn overtime? And, well, we know it's normally $11, but she's getting paid time and a half now. So let's see. $11 times 1.5. So really, she's being paid $16.50 per hour for overtime hours. Okay, so we can put that in here. $16.50. I'm going to put zeros. $16.50 per hour. This calculation can also be written as her money that she actually earns divided by how much she's earning per hour, and that will give us the number of hours. In this case, it's 10 hours. Now, the way I'm showing how to work this out using unit cancellation here doesn't mean to say you have to do it the same way. Intuitively, you may know it can be done just from calculating the 165 and dividing by how much she earns per hour. $16.50 should give us the answer in hours. Okay, so the answer is 10 hours. Okay. Alright, let's go on to number 8. Salesperson at a furniture store earns $9.50 per hour and receives a 1% commission on all sales. Determine the gross earnings of the salesperson who worked 40 hours 1 week with sales of $7,000. I think I'm going to have to read that again to myself. Salesperson earns this per hour, receives 1% commission on all sales, and determine the gross earnings of the salesperson who works for 40 hours 1 week with sales of this. So in other words, they're going to receive a wage because they're earning $9.50 every hour and they worked 40 hours. So let's look at $9.50 per hour times the 40 hours that they've worked. And what does that equal? Well, that is going to give us $350. Sorry, $380. But notice that they're also receiving a commission on all the sales, 1%. That means if they sold $7,000 worth of goods, they get 1% of this. So we have to take 7,000, multiply it by 1%, 1 over 100, or 0.01, and we find that ends up being 70. So we have to add 70 to her regular wage, and we get $450. So they'll earn $450 that week. Number 9. A waiter earns $13.65 per hour and must give 10% of his tips to the kitchen staff. Okay. Hasn't told us anything about the tips except for this so far. He worked for 8 hours. So we obviously multiply this and this to get his wage for the 8 hours. Okay. But he made $13 in tips. Now notice he's going to have to give 10% of this, $213, to the kitchen staff. What is his gross pay? Meaning, in total, what did he take away that night? Well, first of all, $13.65 times the 8 hours and this gives us $109.20. He's going to take home some tips as well, but it's not going to be $213. He's going to give away 10% of that to the kitchen staff. So what is 10% of 213? So it's 10 over 100, or 0.1. So that ends up being $21.30 he's got to give away to the kitchen staff. So we have to subtract that amount from his tips. So 213 minus the 21.30 he gives to the kitchen staff, that gives us 191.70. So it's a pretty good tip for the night. Okay, so his regular wage and his tips, we're going to add these two together. Okay, so 109.20 plus what he's left after he gives away 10% from his tips to the kitchen staff, and we get the following. So $300.90. So at any time you can pause this video before I delete the writing rather, and or even replay, work back if you didn't follow what I covered. On to number 10. Camille earns 8.5% on all sales. If she sold 19,500 worth of goods for the week, what would her earnings be for that week? Okay, this is a straight 8.5% of 19,500 will give us the answer. So 8.5% of 19,500. So we multiply by 8.5 over 100, which is 0.085. Our answer, 1,657.50 will be the answer. Okay, number 11. Mike sells computer products and earns $532.40 per week, or got a choice here maybe, 9.5% commission on his total weekly sales. Whichever is greater, that's what he gets. The tail is the sales. So our question is it larger than $532.40? If it is, that's what he'll take home. If not, he'll have to stick with the $532.40. So let's see what his commission would be. 9.5% of his sales. Sales, 5,601.28 times percent commission, 9.5 over 100, or 0.095. What does this give us? It ends up being $532.12. Not quite as much as his normal earnings, should he choose to take it. So 532.40 is the greater. Okay, let's move on. Okay, just up to 13 and 14 here. We've got a building contractor. He's bidding $10,500 to do a basement renovation project. He estimates the following costs, these guys here. So in other words, what this means is he goes ahead and does the project. At the end of the project, he will get paid the $10,500. He's going to make sure that he's going to earn some money from this if he charges $10,500. Supplies, $1,500. Concrete work, $3,500. Laborers, there's 4 of them. He's going to pay them $13 per hour. So every hour he's going to pay out, when he uses these laborers, $13 times 4. One way to look at that is, okay, if there's 4 laborers working every hour and each of them are getting 13, we've got to multiply 13 by 4 to know what wage he's paying out every hour. So that's $52 every hour that's being paid to the laborers. Now he's estimating that it'll take 35 hours to complete the job. What would the building contractor's wage be per hour? Per hour, okay. In other words, once we find out what's left out of this 10,500 after he subtracts all the expenses, what does he get paid per hour, knowing that they've worked for 35 hours to earn this money? Alright, so let's figure out all the expenses. Expenses are the following. Well, first of all, we've got the supplies, 1,500. We've got the concrete work, 3,500. And we've got the laborers, which is 52 every hour, but there's 35 hours of work. So we have to go 52 times 35 equals, okay, so I just have to figure that out. That becomes $1,820. So that's another expense. Let's add it to the rest of them. Just check there's no more expenses. Doesn't look like it. Add them all up. So in total costs or expenses, it's going to cost him $6,820 to do the job. He's getting paid $10,500 for 35 hours of work. Let us take the 10,500 and subtract the costs and find out how much he actually earned. It was $3,680. Now that's his overall salary. But we want to know how much his wages per hour. And he worked for 35, so this is over 35 hours. Dividing by 35, we'll find out how much he earned per hour. That ends up being $105.14 per hour. So we can put that per hour. Last question, and it's asking, maybe I'll just scroll down here if I can. Yep, better delete the rest of this. You are being hired for a new job, but the employer is giving you a choice of 2 methods of payment. One method is a wage of $24 per hour for the first 140 hours. And 26 per hour for anything more than 140. Second method, 5% commission on your sales up to 40,000. If you sell more than that, you're obviously doing a good job. He wants to pay you more. He'll give you 10% on anything greater. It's an incentive to sell more. You've worked for 167 hours and had a total sales of 63,000. Identify which method would pay you the most and what your income would be. Let's look at method 1. If we are working for 140 hours at $24 per hour, we would take 140 times 24 and we would get 140 times 24 is 3,360. And how many hours did they work? Oh, they worked for 167 hours. So that is 140 plus 27. So they worked 27 more hours, but at a wage now of $26 per hour. So that's an extra 702. So adding that up, they would get $4,062 with that method 1. So that's method 1. Let's look at method 2. 5% commission on 40,000. Well, he earned 63,000, or his sales rather were 63,000. So he's going to get 5% of the 40,000, 0.05. He's also going to get 10% of anything over 40,000. Now look, the difference here is 23,000. 23,000 more sales were made. And he's going to get 10% of that. So doing those calculations, this equals 2,000 and this equals 2,300. It's not a decimal place, it's a comma. Okay, so we get 0, 0, 3, 4. So this is method 2. So we can compare and see that yes, method 2 would pay more. Which method would pay you most and what your income would be? So method 2, and your income would be 4,300. Okay, hopefully that was helpful in working through this assignment with you.